Good evening. It's not just the Egyptian extremist Alaa Abd el-Fattah that ought to be stripped of his British citizenship and deported. It's his sister as well. Last night, Sir Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper launched an investigation into information failures that meant the bloke who apparently hates white people and Jews was allowed to come and live in Britain. But they also missed his sister Mona's social media posts. She appears to have praised the October the 7th attacks by Hamas. She shared a picture of those Hamas paragliders, said it was like something out of a sci-fi movie, and that they had a special kind of imagination to find new ways of resisting occupation. Those paragliders were, of course, terrorists who murdered and kidnapped innocent men, women and children. She appears to have claimed that October the 7th was basically the same as Ukraine resisting Putin's invasion. And she even condemned Amnesty International. Yes, Amnesty International, for calling on Hamas terrorists to stop their violence. She said, you don't ask an occupied nation to stop their resistance. There also would appear to be quite a lot of threats to kill on her social media. I will kill them. I swear I'll kill them. It's pretty on the nose there from old Mona, isn't it? Now, she says that it was silly bantering with friends. Do you tweet stuff like that? I'm not sure you do. But just when you thought David Lammy couldn't look any more foolish, here he is, looking very serious, really trying to look really serious next to her whilst he was in opposition. She was holding a sign, actually, next to him, urging then Foreign Secretary James Cleverly to bring her brother home. Well, he was home, wasn't he? Because he was in Egypt. And there's no evidence that he's ever been to Britain before he landed here this year. But this is the thing I find most hilarious. The el-Fattah family have got everything they want and more from the British state. Successive governments have bent over backwards for no apparent reason to give her brother and his sisters British passports, to release him from an Egyptian prison and to promote the family to help them. Her brother arrives in Britain. What does his sister Mona do? Well, she appears to call for the release of the Palestine Action hunger strikers. Just immediately. It's a classic, isn't it? You give these people everything and then they want even more. But hey, it's not just the British state that was taken in by the el-Fattahs. It's establishment media boffins like Andrew Marr.
Alaa is clearly a very, very important, probably the most important activist and pro-democracy campaigner in his region. And he's also a very, very fine writer. I am a devotee and indeed a collector of good political books, and I like them to be beautifully produced. And without saying any more, this is a very, very beautifully produced. You have not yet been defeated. And it's a gorgeous book, so I encourage you, if you possibly can afterwards, to go and buy a copy. They're on sale right at the back.
Great, always worth listening to Andrew Marr, isn't it? The man who said that Britain was like a little beacon of stability when Labour won the election, so he's always bang on. Anyway, last year, 107 MPs and Lords signed a letter to David Lammy urging them to get el-Fattah into Britain. These include people like Liberal Democrat peer Baroness Sarah Ludford, who is now trying to wriggle out of it by saying that she thought that someone else would just do the due diligence on the el-Fattah family. Great. Brilliant. Should we not expect a bit more from the Lords, do we think? Does it not seem incomprehensible to you that the Intelligence Service, the Foreign Office, top politicians, no members of the House of Lords who signed that letter knew anything about his sister seeming to praise Hamas's October the 7th attack or his tweets? Now, look, we should strip his citizenship and we should deport him, and I think we should just deport his sister as well. She needs to go. But I think we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that some people did actually know how extreme they are, but they ignored it because it didn't suit their narrative. There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today. Let's get thoughts from my panel on this. We have got GB News contributor Will Kingston. We've also got political commentator and trade unionist Andy Twelves, and the GB News contributor as well, Connie Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Will, I'll start with you. So, deport his sister?
Yes, is the short answer. By the way, when I was hosting, I didn't appreciate the speed of foot it took to get from that position to this couch.
Yeah.
So a newfound respect,
My
Patrick.
daily dose of exercise.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad you're still talking about this story, because if it is not the biggest story of the year, and I think it's almost approaching it, it is the story that sums up the year. It says so much about Labor incompetence, about the Conservatives going up against Labor incompetence, but then you realise that they were kind of in on it as well. The lefty lovies, which you covered last night, and the enemy within, to use Trump's term, which applies equally to Britain. The problem in a nutshell is this country has let too many people in who hate the country and its values, and continues to do so. And I think it needs to get more comfortable with just saying, you know what, as a baseline to let people in, they should respect the country. I don't think that's too difficult. But, and this is more difficult politically, but not impossible, you control the laws, you can control how citizenship and deportation works. They should be more comfortable saying, if there is clear and obvious evidence, which there is here, that someone despises this country, its values and what Britain stands for, if they do have dual citizenship and they won't be stateless, get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, his sister there, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I might be able to bring it up again, the paragliders tweet. But, you know, it's pretty grim stuff, given obviously what happened on October the 7th, and to come out and I mean, my interpretation of it anyway is that she's praising it, right? That's what my interpretation of it is. I mean, that should be a deportation matter, shouldn't it?
Yes, I think it should be. And obviously there is a tricky debate between what is free speech and what isn't. But I think that we have to have specific carve-outs for free speech. So, for example, a political party, for example, the Conservative Party, should have the right to say, no, we're not going to let these communists join the party and try and rot us from within. Countries should have that right as well. If she has dual citizenship, there is no automatic right to be able to essentially rot this country from within. And I'm afraid that's what we have allowed to happen over the last few decades by allowing such huge amounts of immigration from countries which hate the West. And this case, like Will was saying, does absolutely summarise this entire year. In particular, this government, whether it's the incompetency of being able to see his tweets. He was rescinded of an award in 2015 after it was discovered how extreme his views are. The hypocrisy about the things that he said and the fact we imprison people like Lucy Connolly, Luke Yarwood, the way that we treat Graham Linehan, and the way that we give out citizenship in this country. Why is it that just because you have a parent who was born, and I appreciate it was a law that was ended in the 80s and he was born just the year before it ended, why should you be able to just get granted a citizenship in 2021 for the sole reason of trying to get him out of prison?
Well, actually, one of the funny aspects of this, now I'm saying you have to laugh because otherwise you cry. But one of the funny aspects of this is that he would have, under British law initially, have sat what was known as a good character test. But we didn't have to do that anymore because a foreign murderer, won a case in the ECHR that meant that basically contravened human rights. You don't have to take that test. So he didn't have to take the good
that old
test,
chestnut.
which presumably he would have failed because of the tweets. But there we go. Look, I know Connie mentioned Lucy Connolly there. We did quite a bit on that last night. I'm keen not to go down the Lucy Connolly rabbit hole this evening, Andy, if that's all right.
Of course.
But just purely, really, of the facts of this, I was looking at it and thinking, the only way this could have got worse, really, is if it turns out that his family are wrongers as well.
Yeah.
And then it really kind of looks like one of his sisters is.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of what she said on Twitter, I don't agree with. I find it quite hateful and quite poisonous. And I think anyone with a sound mind would believe that. I don't think people should be stripped of citizenship because of tweets, though, to be perfectly honest. I think from Keir Starmer's perspective, he didn't grant him the citizenship. He didn't give him the entitlement to the citizenship. He saw a British citizen detained illegally by the Egyptian government. He freed him. As far as I'm aware, that is what you should be doing. If a British citizen is under a fascist authority, if they're illegally detained, yes.
It's not
because he wasn't detained for tweets or anything about it. He was detained because he called for free and fair elections in Egypt.
On the sister specifically,
I don't think you think so. She took the good character test.
Yeah,
she did take the good
we
character
need to have
test.
a very strong
She's
look
a
at
citizen.
that test.
She is entitled to citizenship.
So
I don't think we should be stripping citizenship for
by the
tweets.
police then, because that's the kind of thing that now it's in the public domain.
Well, it was always in the public domain.
Well, yeah, but
it was a public Twitter account.
Now everyone knows about it. Yeah, you would maybe expect to knock on the door from the police. 30 people a day being arrested for social media posts.
If the Metropolitan Police or wherever she resides feel like they want to, good for them. I support them fully too, but I don't think we should be stripping citizenship, rightful citizenship, because of tweets.
Look, it's not the tweet itself, it's what the tweet represents. Connie, I think...
That's not what you would have said about... Not to go down the rabbit hole, but that's not what you would have said about Lucy Connolly.
Well, let's not go down the rabbit hole then.
It's a fair point to raise.
Well, and but the difference is that this represents someone who clearly despises the country. Now, a baseline of being a part of a club, and I think we should start to think about citizenship and immigration like being the member of a club, not an under-8 athletics carnival where everyone gets a go and everyone gets a ribbon at the end of it. A baseline of being part of a club is you should respect that club and you should actually want to be a part of it.
That's why they changed it in 1983.
I think that's why this is a separate issue to any other form of hate speech or any other form of speech which is nasty or disagreeable. The baseline expectation of a citizen is you should at least want to be a citizen and associated with the country.
Connie, I bring you in because I have genuine concerns that what we're actually going to find out from this so-called investigation into this information failure is that actually people really seriously were aware of his, and quite possibly his sister Mona's, tweets and social media posts, and that for whatever reason they either ignored them, didn't think they were a big deal. Maybe the most concerning aspect of it would be is if they agreed with them, actually. And I have concerns that that's what we're actually going to find out here, is that people did know about them and that they didn't mind in the British state.
I mean, I'm not really sure how to respond to it, because I don't know whether it would make it even... Patrick, if they knew about it, then obviously it makes it worse. It would surprise me if they knew about it, it would.
Can I add to that? You are right in saying there are only two options here. Either diabolical incompetence, both politically and administratively, or moral bankruptcy. And they're both resignation worthy, both of the politicians who supported this man and advocated for him, and anyone who was in part of the administrative efforts to bring him back or to make him a citizen in the first place. Like, it almost doesn't matter. They are both resignation worthy.
This is the thing. You know, James Cleverly, not to dig up the Tories too much here, but, like, he did at him on Twitter.
Yep.
In 2022. Like, they were aware that he had a Twitter account and what it was. And honestly, I'm not even to dig into the Tories, I'm surprised that no one at the FCDO or at the Home Office or whomever it was didn't Google it. I would be genuinely shocked.
I find it so incomprehensible that I think almost the logical conclusion is that they did know about this stuff. Because I find it so important. So it's so terrifying to think that we actually genuinely live in a country where we are being told we've got however many hundred, or in cases 1,000 people coming across the English Channel every single day, not to mention the amount of people who come in the back of lorries that we never find out about. And we are told, we're going to do background checks on these people. We're going to do a story later on about how there's this military base in Inverness, in Scotland. Now, the blokes, almost entirely blokes, who currently live at that military base are about to be deployed abroad. Now, a lot of their wives and children will still be living next door to this base, because a lot of the families of military live around military bases. And they are going to replace those army blokes with 300 asylum seekers very soon. That's supposedly happening on the 12th of January. And looking at this case here now, there is no way you can tell me that you've done proper background checks on those blokes, and we're leaving them next to the wives and children of people who are fighting the armed forces.
I think the issue here, Patrick, one of the reasons why to clarify what I mean by I would be surprised if they knew about They may well have seen them, but I think we have an issue in the West in general as seeing everything that happens all around the world in a Western lens. We
100%.
have this idea that most people want to live in peace, that most people view democracy and everyone having the right to their own country or land as being normal. And so when, for example, we see words as globalise the Intifada as an example, we don't understand what the origins of that and what that actually means to a lot of people. So when he apologised, and even, forgive me, I can't remember her name, the Tory MP who said, he's apologised now, people can change. I think we have, the difference between, and not to go down the rabbit hole, the difference between something that Lucy Connolly said and some of the tweets that these two siblings have said is that this is a very deep-rooted ideology. Apologising for something that, by the way, he said when he was 32, he wasn't a teenager. That's very different, and we need to get rid of with this.
And we can see that because the ultimate cheek, there's been two levels of cheek to this, really, because he has, after apologising, it was revealed, it's on the front of the Daily Telegraph, been liking posts about how all of this stuff is just a Zionist conspiracy against him. So, apology received, right? But then his sister immediately starts going basically like, cheers, Keir Starmer, my brother's in Britain. Now, release the Palestine Action hunger strikers.
She's a zealot to the cause, is Mona. She's a zealot to the cause. I think one of the things I think is worth mentioning, though, you spoke about, the values of democracy, of freedom. That was the reason he was detained in Egypt, was because he does believe in democracy and free and fair elections. He was one of the few in 2010 that got arrested for protesting in favour of Christians having the right to practice their religion. He is a believer in all of these things. That was the reason he was illegally detained by the authoritarian Egyptian government.
Why would you say all of these other things? Because the two doesn't really add up. How can you correlate them?
I mean, random shootings of white people.
But you can't say that he doesn't believe in democracy and freedom when that's the reason he got illegally detained. The authoritarian Egyptian government viewed him as much of a risk because he believed in those things that they illegally detained him.
But why should that mean that we have to welcome him in?
Well, because he had the right to British citizenship. Yeah. He had the right to it.
Well, that is a separate topic in its entirety.
If the Tories,
I don't think he should.
Big Bobby Jenrick is having a go now. He was a minister when he got granted citizenship. Where was he then? Yeah, just to round us off, because we're a bit pressed for time now, just very quickly, just want to talk about a couple of the other people who've been taken in by this. Andrew Marr, we played that clip to you there, and that Lib Dem peer as well, who's gone on Twitter and said, she basically has just said, look, I thought someone else would do the due diligence. And I think there's a really good point here to be made about how these people, the kind of lovely left-wing they saw what they wanted to see from this guy, and they do it all the time. They see what they want to see from like these so-called Gazan refugees. They're not going to stop and ask them what their views are about several things. They see what they want to see about aspects of the more fundamentalist aspects of the Muslim community in Britain. They don't do any digging. They don't want to expose it at all. I think a similar setup with this guy.
Well, that's particularly bad for a journalist, and it's too many journalists who now see themselves as activists as opposed to the fundamental job of a journalist, which should be to hold power to account and uncover the truth. Andrew Marr, who is an experienced journalist, is quite frankly embarrassing that he's not capable of one Google search.
All right, guys, well, look, we're going to whiz ourselves on because we have got an action-packed show tonight. I do just want to remind us all of what Alaa Abd el-Fattah has said. He says, looking at those tweets now, the ones that were not completely twisted out of their meaning, I do understand how shocking and hurtful they are. For that, I unequivocally apologise. Again, I will emphasise that we have contacted Mona Seif, who is one of his sisters, for a comment. We've not received a response, but we will bring you the latest on that story as we get it. There's probably going to be some developments when we get the front pages at 10:30. But the government spokesperson has said that Mr el-Fattah is a British citizen. It's been a long-standing priority under successive governments to work for his release from detention and to see him reunited with his family in the UK.